motherfucker just will not tilt, no matter what I do. How's that for English? Hey guys, Joe here, and I just wanted to do a quick video. I haven't done one in a while because I've been focusing more on the business side of things, as well as, you know, finding things and getting things ready for the video, such as, you know, a couple of shelving units, which I will probably picture in better detail in a little bit. As you can see, you've got things like a shelf for graphics cards and a shelf for water cooling supplies, ATI and EVGA stuff, motherboards at the bottom. So yeah, it's getting kind of organized in a way that will make it easier to keep it all sorted, as well as find parts when I'm doing builds, such as April's build of the month. How's that for a segue? All right, so let's take a look at this. As you can see, this is the Cooler Master Light 3.1 case that I picked up a while back. In fact, this PC of the month is actually more complicated than you would think because it uses extra parts from other builds and other pickups. So let's kind of dive into it. So a guy on Craigslist had a case and a AMD 5350 APU on a little Asus motherboard that actually had a PCIe slot, and I grabbed it because for $40 I got the motherboard, a case, a monitor, which is actually a television that I can hook up to old school things, 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, as well as a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive, which is actually in that computer as a secondary backup drive, and I got it all for 40 bucks. Okay, fine. Well, I'm selling this on eBay. It's for 25 bucks. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. To help recoup some of my money. I also used the case from it, this one here, and put my Opteron system in there, which is the 1385 system. And it's got the GTX 460 and all that good jazz in there. And the reason I did that, again, was because I wanted to flip that, and I will eventually once I finish monkeying with it and get some money back. But that leads me to what you're seeing inside this system. Now, what you're seeing is a AMD Athlon X4 750K. It's got one of my Corsair water coolers. This is just a basic H60. When I first got it, it had these two DIMMs in there, which are DDR3, and then I added two more, which I got out of the 5350 system. For a graphics card, it has a R7 260X, and it's a 1 gigabyte version, which is kind of bleh, but it does work fine for this solution. Powering it is my tried and true Cooler Master 500 watt power supply. Now, obviously it's not a powerhouse system, but that's not the point of this system. I put this system together, number one, because it's very cheap. I got the motherboard, the CPU, the graphics card, and 8 gigabytes of RAM for $40. Another one of those cases of somebody wanting to get rid of things. And he also threw in a Corsair CX500M semi-modular power supply with the extra cables, so that's good to have. And in fact, you saw this one being used to power the GTX 690 from that video. I think it's that way. I have the monitor turned off right now because when it's on, it totally blows out the white balance, so I'm not going to try to film myself and it at the same time, but I'll show you some footage off of the screen. As far as some numbers go, it's overclocked from 3.4 gigahertz to 4.2 gigahertz on water, and it runs fairly cool at in the high 40s, low 50s under load on IDA 64. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on now so you can see a few things. I have it clocked right now at 4 gigahertz, which is a very stable overclock, and in fact I can go to 4.3, but I didn't want to do that because it's a little bit too much for the system. It is a 4-core processor, however it only shows as 2 cores because AMD at the time was still using SMT, which is simultaneous multi-threading, if I'm not mistaken. If I am mistaken, somebody correct me. And it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. It has 2 hard drives in it. It has the OCZ 120 gigabyte hard drive, and the Micro Center Special 120 gig hard drive down there. Those hard drives are designed to be moved to other builds as I need them. This one has the operating system and I think CSGO. That one down there has Fallout 4 as well as Grand Theft Auto 5 on it, which basically take up the entire hard drive. But in Cinebench, it's not terrible. It does 315 at 4 gigahertz, which is comparable to what my i3 2120 was running. And it does okay in terms of frame rates for games as well. So I'm going to go ahead and load up Call of Duty, which is not on this one. I'm going to go ahead and load up CSGO. If you're looking here at the screen, you'll see that I have the power limit and the temp limits all the way up. And for core clock, it's set at 1075 megahertz. For the memory clock, it's at 1600 megahertz. You got to remember that AMD is quad pumped. So basically it's divided by 4 versus NVIDIA, which is only divided by 2. So it's actually running at 6400 megahertz, which is pretty good for a lower end card like this. So as you can see, since this GPU is actually not that great, it doesn't bottleneck the graphics card at all, which is good for this title anyways. But as you can see, it's bouncing anywhere from 100 to 180, which is pretty good. So as you saw in CSGO, it runs anywhere from 100 to 180 FPS, which is muy bueno on such a cheap system. Obviously, I don't need this system for that, but it's nice to be able to do things on the other computer, such as tear it apart, rebuild it, do whatever I need to, as well as play some games on it. Next, I'm going to load up Grand Theft Auto 5 and put it through the benchmarks. Just wanted to show you real quick that obviously this graphics card only having 1024 megabytes is not really recommended for this game, but I am able to run it in 1920 by 1080. It's just you have to turn literally everything down. And now we will run some benchmarks. Even though it's running a 1 gigabyte graphics card, it's actually the CPU that's bottlenecking the GPU still. So yeah, obviously an Athlon X4, it's not even a Phenom, an Athlon X4 is going to bottleneck it, but it's actually doing okay. You know, anywhere from 50 to 80 FPS is completely playable in my opinion, and if it can get closer to 60, even under the synthetic benchmark here, it's not bad at all. And that's perfectly fine. One thing of note, and I did try it, is I did try putting a better graphics card. This is a GTX 960 4 gig, and it doesn't do much better because it's the CPU that's holding back the graphical performance of this system. That's basically April's PC of the month. I'm not done with it. I have other plans for it, such as maybe throwing a different processor in there. The 750K is a pretty low level K processor for that motherboard. It's an FM2 Plus. It can take up to the 860K, and it can also take the more current A10 7870K, which runs better, runs faster, and may actually produce some decent numbers. If I decide to do that, if I can find a system cheap enough, I will swap out some parts and make that one a little bit faster. In the meantime, it does everything I need to. It doesn't even need 16 gigs of RAM because all I use it for is watching Netflix on this TV, or sometimes playing CSGO if that computer's loading up software or running tests, or I'm changing hardware, whatever the case may be. So in general, it's a very purposeful and useful computer. It cost me less than 60 bucks, and it will work for as long as I need it to. So if you liked that video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions about it, let me know. I'm sorry I didn't do like a vlog on building it. I just threw it together, which is something I tend to do. I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to filming stuff. So to me, sitting there and just letting the camera film me build something for an hour kind of seems like I'm wasting time and footage, and then I don't wind up filming it. But I have to learn to start doing that, I think, as well as show you some of the processes of how I get around problems and difficult situations. So yeah, like I said, give me a thumbs up if you like that video. Leave a comment down below if you'd like to. Don't forget to subscribe, possibly become a Patreon, and watch some of the other videos. And since, obviously, I'm getting more serious about getting things organized, maybe I could start doing some even better stuff in the future. That's my goal. Get better every day. And, as always, I'll talk to you later.